The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Today is Monday, July 25th, 2022. Thank you so much for joining me. I've spent the weekend being inundated with two different stories that are inextricably linked, or at least the underlying problem around them are inextricably linked. I want to begin with the World Health Organization, which has declared monkeypox to be a global health emergency. This is in the wake of what seems to be the uncontrolled spread of a virus that we should be concerned about. This weekend, or not even just this weekend, but for the past few weeks where we have been tracking monkeypox, there has been a concerted effort, not just by radical evangelicals, to label monkeypox as something that is an STD that is transferred. This is what they're saying. And I want to be precise with my language here, because these algorithms have a tendency of penalizing us for calling out medical misinformation. So what I'm getting ready to say is calling out medical information that's coming not only from evangelicals and religious circles who are insisting that this is of no concern because this is a quote unquote gay related disease. Very reminiscent of how, remember in the 80s, it was called GRID, gay related immune deficiency disease, before it was called AIDS. But this is just as much as they were wrong in the 80s, they're wrong now. But that doesn't stop them from forwarding misinformation. But it's not just those people. We have, coming from major news organizations like the Associated Press, even the director of the CDC. We have the first two cases of children being affected with monkeypox. And in response to those two children here in the United States being infected, the director of the CDC, and I will play the clip for you, tied it back to the fact that those children are connected to a same-sex couple. Mind you, monkeypox is airborne. Okay, so let's just stop. Anyone who is listening here who is like, well, Ben, I heard it was a gay related. That level of misinformation coming both from the theocratic fascists who have determined to undermine and destabilize this country by any means necessary so that they can take over, is being assisted by outlets like the Associated Press. Let me read the headline from the Associated Press, and I want to play for you the clip from the director of the CDC. But first, this from the Associated Press. Monkeypox virus could become entrenched as new STD in the U.S. Here's a headline on Twitter saying the spread of monkeypox in the U.S. could represent the dawn of a new sexually transmitted disease, though some health officials say the virus that causes pimple-like bumps might yet be contained before it gets firmly established. That second part, I didn't even have to read it because it really has nothing to do with the misinformation that is being forwarded by not the paper of record, but everyone tends to trust the Associated Press. And so for them to label this as an STD when it is airborne, not only is it airborne, but it transfers through touch, being close proximity to someone. You do not have to have sex with them. And you most certainly don't have to be a gay person, as many of the other headlines are asserting. This amount of misinformation is insidious on two levels because, number one, it's going to make more targets out of the LGBTQIA community, for which are the scapegoats of everything that's happening in this world, according to right-wing evangelicals and the religious right in this country. They want to make every single thing that is wrong in this country the fault of the gay community. And I just want to, there's a picture before I play this clip from the director of the CDC, who is, I almost said unwittingly assisting these theocratic fascists. But at this point, this is the place where theocratic fascism nicely overlaps with capitalism, if I could just be honest with you, because the reason we are still in the pandemic of COVID-19, the reason we cannot get control over that, the reason it is expected to be with us forever is because we refuse as a nation to let me fix my language. The powerful and the wealthy refuse to allow this nation to slow down and stop long enough so that we can shelter in place and shut things down long enough to get control over this virus. They were so committed to their profits that they threw everyone back into this pandemic, and now we have over 1 million dead. And so the overlap of theocratic fascism, who wants to make a villain out of everyone whose life they don't approve of, side note, even if it is the case that they are living the same exact lifestyle, for which I will talk about in the next segment. We got a lot of these religious folks out here who are living the exact lifestyles that they preach against every single Sunday. But not only is it those folks, it is the nice overlap of greed. And that's something that this country cannot get away from. This is why you would have paper of records like the New York Times and the Associated Press and all these media outlets and the director of the CDC putting it into the minds of the average American that they don't have to worry about monkeypox because it's, according to their misinformation, an STD. That is, according to their misinformation, most associated with the LGBTQIA community. Here's a clip from Rochelle Walensky, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, the director of the CDC, with her misinformation.
We do have seen now 2 cases that have occurred in children. Both of those children are traced back to individuals who come from the men who have sex with men community, the gay men community. And so when we have seen those cases in children, they have generally been what I call adjacent to the community most at risk.
This is medical misinformation and malpractice of the highest order in order to keep people from taking actions to protect themselves, because the necessary actions that have to be taken to protect ourselves is a threat to the quarterly profit margins of this country. And it is a political threat to anybody who's in power right now, including the sitting president of the United States. But let's get some real information here, right? Monkeypox is spread not just through sexual contact. It's spread through close contact. It's spread through kissing. It's spread through touch. It's spread through the air. Okay? It's spread. It leaves. The thing that freaked me out the most about this is that it lingers on surfaces for 3 to 18 months, y'all. Monkeypox lingers on surfaces that have not been cleaned for 3 to 18 months. And they're trying to convince you that this is not something to be concerned about. Why? Because if you're concerned, you're going to take action. And those actions are, one, generally to call out the people who are irresponsible and have been irresponsible with our lives for the last 3 years, including this administration. I voted for Joe Biden. I'll call him out. He has had more people die under COVID-19 than Donald Trump. And that's particularly because Donald Trump set him on this trajectory. But I did not see them take the actions necessary to preserve that other 500,000 lives. Because we kept playing games. We kept suspending mask mandates. We kept encouraging people to go out and get on planes. Listen, never forget that it was Delta Airlines, along with a couple of other airlines, that asked President Biden to drop the federal mask mandate in the first place. Because why? Well, they didn't want to discourage the amount of flying that was happening. They wanted to increase the flights. They wanted people to not have to worry about a pandemic. And what happened? They have to cancel more flights now than ever before. There's backups all around the country, all around the world, quite frankly, because it's not just the United States engaging in this irresponsible behavior. And it is all rooted in 3 things. The bigotry of religious zealots who believe that God is punishing the earth because of the LGBTQI community. And I'm sitting back like, not laughing, but examining how many of them are dying, right? How many, you're more likely to have died of COVID-19 if you watch Fox News. The study came out during the pandemic. Hell, we're still in the pandemic, right? So you have that group that are insisting on making everything that happens right now the scapegoat. They're looking for a scapegoat because they have nothing to offer humanity other than their hatred and their bigotry. That's group 1. Group 2, they are the people who insist on making their money no matter if it kills you. Which is why in the state of Georgia, I don't know if it's happening in your state, but everywhere you go in the state of Georgia, there's a big warning. You can't sue this company if you get sick and die of COVID-19. And last but not least, you have the cabal of idiocy. Those who like to revel in their ignorance and the conspiracy theories, and those who simply refuse to wear a mask because they think wearing a mask is more dangerous than catching COVID-19, because according to them, COVID-19 is a plandemic. And according to them, monkeypox is a virus that only affects gay people. The surprise is coming in the fall. And I would like to encourage and kind of just, warn everybody who has children going into schools in the fall. Just as we saw with COVID-19, monkeypox has the potential of spreading completely unabated, because it is impossible to send your kids to school and they not touch stuff and they not play with each other and they not breathe on each other. And, this is just the nature of schools. And if we have not taken precautions, if we have not taken precautions to protect then we're going to see a lot of terrible things coming up in this fall. It's not what I wish, but we have been in this long enough for us to be able to see clearly what is getting ready to come around the bend. And then, of course, I think there might even be a fourth group, those that are actually out to reduce the population as much as they can, because, my God, 1 million people dead from COVID-19 just in the United States alone. And it did not have to be that way. We have a new case of polio for the first time in the United States in 70 years in New York. Young man paralyzed. We have so much anti-science ignorance happening on top of everything else. And I'll talk about it more after this break.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Yeah. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about another issue that has been happening over the weekend, and it is the full-on assertion of Christian nationalism by name. They're not even mincing words anymore, talking about none other than Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's not by herself. There are plenty others who are insisting that America should be, and by right must be, a Christian nationalist nation. Let's take a listen into representative. This is an elected official, ladies and gentlemen, non-gender conforming individuals sitting in Congress right now.
Is I believe in accountability, and I believe in not just saying something, but following through on it. And I believe that Republicans need to prove to the American people that we are the party of American nationalism and Christian nationalism. I'm a Christian. I have no problem saying I'm a Christian nationalist. And I think that's an identity that we need to embrace, because those are the policies that serve every single American, regardless of how they vote. They could be a Democrat and a progressive, but Christian nationalist or American nationalist, America First policies still serve those people, because they're the right policies for everyone. Now,
I'm working on a video and an article, because this topic is, I think, one of the most critical topics of our time. Because at the forefront of every problem, which is why they have to scapegoat everybody, at the forefront of every single problem that we have in this country, it is a system that is designed to work for white Christian men and all of the adjacent minorities who like to just collect checks from them. This white Christian nationalism is a threat to humanity. And I say that clear-eyed as a Christian. I hail from the liberation theology, particularly black liberation theology. And anyone who is not a white Christian man, white Christian straight man, to add to, more of a point, anyone who is not a white Christian straight man has literally had to fight against Christian nationalists to gain their rights in this country. Marjorie Taylor Greene she probably doesn't even know how to define these things, except for she likes the crowd that it puts her in. It puts her in a crowd of avowed racists and Nazis. It puts her in a group of people who allow her to rise despite the sheer ignorance that is coming out of her mouth. And I'm not just talking about her ignorance around the particular issue of Christian nationalism. I'm just saying all the way around the board, there's a level of intentional obtuseness that is required to win office in the Republican Party now. And she's finding all the support that she needs from these racists. Christian nationalism, and then she said American nationalism and America First. America First is an actual organization. I know she's talking about the slogan, but it's funny. Marjorie Taylor Greene went to the American First rally and spoke, which is gathered and which was put together by Nick Fuentes, who I've covered quite a few times on this show, who is, you know what? Forget my words. Here's Nick Fuentes.
Our parents thought that our grandparents were crazy. You know, our parents were like, Mom, Dad, you know, you really shouldn't treat people like that. You know, that's really prejudice. And, you know, Mom, Dad, I just want to do whatever I want. And now you have shirtless black people accosting you in a very expensive resort in Las Vegas. So clearly our grandparents were right. Okay, they weren't politically correct, and they were in fact racist, but they were right. And Generation Z has got to recover the lost wisdom of our racist grandparents. That's the real red pill. That's the real task at hand. It's our job. We are called as members of Generation Z to rediscover the lost prejudice and racism of our grandparents. Our grandparents were right.
Our grandparents were right. We need to discover the racism of our grandparents. This is Nick Fuentes of the America First PAC organization. Now, here he is introducing Marjorie Taylor Greene as she came to speak at his white nationalist rally. Let's take a listen.
We are honored, we are humbled and excited to welcome to the stage right now for our first speech, and we love to get to know her much better. I think this is going to be the beginning of something great. The representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene proceeds to go in and does what she does, which is to be a full-throated bigot, proud. Just out and unabashed white nationalist. See, when they say Christian nationalism, don't be fooled if you are a Christian thinking that it will include you if you're not a white person or a minority who serves and capitulates to them. If you are if you're like me and you love the Lord Jesus, but you happen to also stand on the side of justice and liberation, they will come and hunt us down all the same. Do not allow the name Christian. The name Christian nationalism should just scare you anyway, because all of the things that have been done in history in the name of Christian nationalism, the lynchings, the murders, the Sunday morning picnics where they would kill us, they would lynch us before, during, and after service, done in the name of Christian nationalism. That's just an American. I mean, all of Jim Crow, all of slavery, done in Christian nationalism, all of that. Go beyond American history, world history. Christian nationalism, the idea that you have a God-ordained responsibility to go around the globe and compel through force. Don't compel. See, they don't have the desire to convince people that they should follow Christ by living an example that would make people to actually want to be like you, be like Christ. Instead, they want to spread Christianity at the tip of a barrel of a gun, tip of the spear. This is what they mean when they say Christian nationalism. And then she pivoted really quickly and said American nationalism. Make no mistake, it is still drenched, even more so, in the idea of white supremacy, white male supremacy. And what's taken me so long on this project is that it's a big one. It's a big one because there's so many examples. There are so many examples of mouth breathing, knuckle dragging, hate filled bigotry that's done in the name of Jesus. Because they think, oh, just simply because I say the name Jesus, that absolves me of every other thing that I do in this world. That gives them permission to kill us. They are literally preaching sermons about killing people because they don't agree with their lifestyle. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to play it. I don't want to keep playing these voices to keep promoting them, but I do need us to have full awareness. And especially I just want to take a little side caveat and speak to those who may be Christians in the crowd, particularly black Christians. If you're still going to one of these evangelical churches, you're still going to one of these churches where they're like Paula White whether she's preaching and praying for African angels to come down and help Donald Trump win. These churches, these pastors who are just reveling in the level of bigotry, the level of hatred. There's no way possible that any of these people can be effective communicators for Christ because they are drenched in their hatred. And yet, black folks, y'all still going to their churches? I mean, seriously? Like, women still go to these churches of any race when they are being required to subject themselves to the not only the abuse of the patriarchy, but the poor leadership of the patriarchy. Because aren't you guys tired of following these incompetent men who can't look in the mirror and see how they made the mistake that destroyed the company, that destroyed the marriage, that destroyed the family? Because there's some inherent wisdom that's imbued in testicles. Like where are we in our thinking ability as humans to allow these barbarians to continue unabated? And I'm speaking particularly to those of us who are in these churches. Like, we are the power holders. Well, maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're not. Maybe they've convinced you that you have a voice in that church when all they wanted was representation so that they could say that they were diverse. But at the end of the day, when the rubber met the road, they would sacrifice you just as quick as they would sacrifice the LGBTQIA community if you're not already LGBTQIA. This is the reality of 2022 in the United States of America. If these people get any more power, there's no question that we would go back to witch trials and inquisitions. They want to start a new civil war. They think they are crusaders. Have mercy on us, God.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Yeah.
Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
I only have a few more minutes today. I'm going to try to get as many podcasts out to you this week as possible. Talking with you is, well, I mean, that's what we did for 7 years. And it definitely helps me sort through my own thoughts, which is certainly going to help me finish these articles and the series of videos. The videos I want to focus on are going to be two parts, dual purpose. The first purpose is to make sure everyone is clear about the scale and the scope of the threat of Christian nationalism, what I'm clearly defining as white Christian male supremacy, because that they're inseparable, they're indistinguishable. Christian nationalism is white male Christian supremacy. And I think people need to know the scale of the threat that we're facing, because we're not just talking about hundreds of radical preachers who are indoctrinating millions of people across the country. We're also talking about well-financed organizations like the Family Research Council that is not a church, but just got a distinction from the IRS declared to be a church, which means there's even less accountability for the Family Research Council, which is one of the most insidious organizations running around the country claiming to do things in the name of Jesus, but doing it in backfilled, smoke-filled rooms. Okay? It is the family. If you haven't read or heard of The Family, go look at the Netflix documentary by Jeff Charlotte. I had him on the show a couple of times. These are very powerful people, very wealthy people who own Washington, D.C. so much that they are the ones who insist and continue and perpetuate the National Prayer Breakfast. But that prayer breakfast, which sounds so good and peaceful, let's all come together and pray, is actually a lobbying opportunity for religious zealots, Christian nationalists. I was reading a tweet from my friend Wajahat Ali, and this is what he said on Twitter. Christian leaders who have stayed silent should step up and denounce Christian nationalism, fascism, and the threat it poses to not only their religion, but also to democracy in the United States. And that's the other part. Not so much that I want to make this podcast a religious podcast, no. But I need everyone to understand the differences of why I am going to fight these monsters so hard. Because as Brother Ali said, they are not only a threat to my faith as a Christian, they are a threat to everyone. They are a threat to the planet. And they claim that God has called them to be good stewards. But when it comes to this planet, being a good steward over this planet comes in direct conflict with the profits of the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry, the energy sector. And so what do? They completely ignore the science. That's another thing about these Christian nationalists, these white male Christian supremacists and their cabal of sycophants. Their faith requires them to diminish God, the idea of God, so small that it fits into their back pocket. Right? They can't possibly serve a God or an idea of the universe or whatever. They can't serve something that's going to threaten their money because their money is their God. Right? Let's be real. Their greed is their God. Their bigotry, their hatred, that's their God. I mean, they erected golden images, golden calves of Donald Trump. They're so far gone down the rabbit hole of their commitment to white supremacy, of their commitment to their money, of their commitment to their bigotry, that religion is really just a bludgeoning tool for them. They would just as soon crucify if Jesus came back in 2022, Jesus would be dead before the end of 2022 because they would execute him. That's the reality. Make no mistake about it. The Jesus that overturned the tables in the temple and chased the money changers out of the temple, they would execute him. No questions. And it's just the strangest, not the strangest thing, but it's just sobering to realize that for every ancestor of mine that prayed to be delivered from slavery had to pray to be delivered from Christian nationalism, because that was at the core of slavery, white Christian male supremacy. So we literally, as they are praying that God would get rid of the immigrants, this is what Christian nationalism is. Christian nationalism prays that God would do away with the immigrants when Jesus was an immigrant. Christian nationalists pray that God would do away with the gay community, that God would do away with women's rights, that God would do away with the minorities, with black folks, or at least the black folks who don't fall in line with their ideology. It blows me away that literally everything that we have had to fight for in this country has been a fight against Christian nationalists. And here Marjorie Neanderthal Greene is saying that the country should be a Christian nationalist nation. And it's not just her. It's not just her. She's just the one in Congress with the biggest platform because she's willing to say and go anywhere, including to white nationalist events like America First. This is what Christian nationalism is. This is why it is a threat to Christians who are not white nationalists. Christian nationalism doesn't even, like, they always talk about the Judeo-Christian values, but, you know, Ben Shapiro has been coming under a lot of attack lately because of his religion. And it only holds on to the Judeo part long enough to maintain the power that they need. But I'm preaching to the choir. I know a lot of my audience, you know, are atheists or agnostic or something else. And so you've seen that problem very clearly. But the thing is that the problem has grown and it has festered. And here we are as a result of white male Christian supremacy, Christian nationalism, and the greed that finances it, and the ignorance that is required to sustain it. We're on the, plague number 4? COVID, monkeypox. We have an outbreak of polio. And I haven't even counted all the natural disasters, the earthquake in diverse places. I mean, the world is on fire. Temperatures are higher. Really, maybe America is a biblical nation because we're trying to get all 10 of the plagues under our belt. And it is a direct result of not of God. It's the direct result of the ignorance of men, the bigotry of mankind, the hate, the greed. Literally everything Jesus stood against is what these morons stand for, what these hate-filled barbarians champion. And they want to spread it. It's not enough for them to have the right to worship the way they want to worship. Their worship requires that they subjugate you if you don't believe what they believe. And that is a clear and present threat, especially when they are organizing around the country. They are in regiments. The Proud Boys. I know we were laughing last week. I don't know if you saw the videos of all the Proud Boys out there boxing. I'm so glad I got Whew, good Lord Almighty. I'm so glad I got out there and been boxing pretty good for some years now, because, man, those Proud Boys looked horrible, laughable. I know we're laughing about it, but at the end of the day, they're organized and they're training, right? They're in the woods around the country, boxing each other, looking like fools right now, but you give them about 6 months to a year, they might look as good as me. I'm joking. I'm not going to show you guys my skills. I was going to delete that, but no, I'm going to leave that in there. We're laughing at them, but they're training. They're regimented. They're training. You got the 3%ers, you got the Oath Keepers, you got the Proud Boys, you got the Boogaloo Boys, and that's just to name a few. They're marching in the streets. They're organizing. They have political power. They're running for office. They have appointees on the judiciary, thanks to Donald Trump. And it extends all the way up to the elitist Supreme Court, which now is controlled by white Christian supremacy, white Christian male supremacy. We have a challenge on our hands. And one of the ways that we're going to win this is because those of us who believe in Christianity, those of us who believe in Jesus, have to be able to clearly speak that what they're praying for, we have to pray against. What Christian nationalists pray for, liberation theology, liberation Christians, black liberation theologists, we have to pray against. A victory for them is literally a defeat for humanity in every way imaginable. Prove me wrong. Because they are not good stewards of this environment. If Jesus doesn't come back in 1,000 years, we'll be dead in probably 100 as a species because of the ignorance of Christian nationalism, white male Christian supremacy, and the greed that finances it. And if we haven't destroyed ourselves in that amount of time, we certainly are going to be engaged in wars with each other, religious wars. For what reason? I have no desire. I want to make something clear as I get ready to get out of here. I honestly have no desire to attack a person's religion, especially when it is so parallel to mine. You're like, how do you take the time to distinguish between a philosophy of Jesus that is actually helpful to humanity and a philosophy of Jesus that is detrimental to humanity? Most people don't really have time or care to parse that nuance. But if these people go unchallenged, well, with the lead that they already have, they might actually win. So I think we have to call them out from every possible way, philosophically, politically, academically, with science, and also through faith, because my faith compels me to fight back against Christian nationalism. And I'll see you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.